Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy, for Nerds, by Nerds. I'm Ted, and today I'm joined with
Nerdarchy Ryan, and we also have
Brian Stillman.
Hey.
And today we visit the Plastic Galaxy with Brian Stillman. Guys, jump down to the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter. It's a great way to get gaming tips as well as learn how to game with us.
So we're here with Brian Stillman, and we're going to talk about Plastic Galaxies. So probably those great original toys from Kenner, right?
Yeah.
And how does one go from playing with their collection of Star Wars toys to making a documentary about it?
We don't play, we collect.
They're action figures, and they go on their station shelf.
So I've been a toy collector for a long time. I collect robots and ray guns from the 30s, 40s, and 50s, like the old Japanese tin stuff,
yeah.
Buck Rogers stuff, yeah. But I've been a diehard Star Wars fan since basically when it came out. I saw it in one of the reissues in like 1980 when they brought it back into theaters. I was super young. I saw it then. And I had the toys as a kid and everything else, but I didn't really collect them. And I don't know, sort of 2009 or so, 2008, I started getting back into Star Wars toys. The thing about it just clicked, and I started collecting them. And I'm the type of collector who likes to know as much about this stuff as possible. So I'll look for books, I'll look for articles, I'll look for whatever. I like to know the history, the background. And I figured somebody's made this movie. The Star Wars has been out for 40 years. These toys have been out since 78, 77, but 78 technically. Somebody has to have done this, and I want to see this movie. And nobody has. And I was like, huh. Well, I'm a journalist. I do broadcast work. I know how to do this stuff. I'm a great big giant nerd. So I'll just do it myself, and it'll be a way to interview all these people and learn about them, learn about all this stuff, and then have something that I can put out where other people can then watch it and learn the stuff that I've learned.
Well, clearly, if there's something that you've said, I want this, there's somebody else out there that had the same question,
Sure.
but without the knowledge and the ability that you have, so you've provided that for that audience.
Well, that's what I was figuring, you know, it'd be a way to kind of share all this information I found, so I don't want to just call up these people and talk to them. I'm going to put it in this film. So I figured
That's kind of how you end up with a YouTube channel, by the way. Yeah.
It's the same thing that, you know, the old zine philosophy. When I was younger, I used to publish zines and stuff. It's the same thing. It's like, well, if I'm interested in this, maybe other people are interested in it. And if I have the skill or the time or the will to go out and learn about it, I want to share this information.
Yeah, especially when you clearly see nobody else is doing it.
Yeah. So I did it. You know, I just set out and said, let's make this happen. I naively thought it would be much easier than it was. It was not easy, but it was crazy fun and totally worth the effort.
Yeah. I myself, I still have a whole bunch of my 80s Star Wars figures. Accessories probably gone to the four corners of the world.
Right.
You know, packaging torn apart. For a long time, I actually saved like the cardboard backs. I don't know why.
A lot of collectors collect that stuff, just the hard backs.
But back then they had, you got to cut off the UPCs to send in for these other characters, so a lot of them had those things clipped. I know maybe late 90s or early 2000s, I was actually getting a little bit more into the collecting angle of it, and I was hunting down, it wasn't the rarest, but one of the rarer action figures from Return of the Jedi, Man.
Oh, yeah.
And I actually wound up with my local gaming store who did both collectibles and Magic the Gathering. You know, I wound up making a trade with him because he could get action figures and stuff, but he was making more off of Magic.
Sure,
I wound up trading Magic cards for an Man figure.
Nice.
And like he's still, on display in my room.
Right.
He's got his staff, and he's not in a, not sealed, not in any kind of package in any way, shape, or form. But I got him.
Awesome.
Cardboard for plastic.
Well, you worked for it, and that. You didn't just go out and drop a ton of money to get a thing.
Right.
You made it happen, and those are sort of the most fun collecting moments when you walk away and you feel like, all right, I did that. My wallet is still doing okay, and wheeled and dealed, and I have this prize, and that's always fun. I mean, sometimes you have to go in and just buy the damn thing, but you know, if you can swing the deals, I love stuff like that. Wish I was able to do it more. My wallet would like it more.
Do you have any prized, collection piece for?
For Star Wars, yeah, I've sold chunks of my Star Wars collection to finance further filmmaking and things like that. And just, I live in New York City, so I have a small apartment. I'm not a rich filmmaker. I'm not Steven Spielberg. So you have to sort of decide where do you want your resources to go.
Interview's over.
Right. Who cares about this guy?
He's
not Steven Spielberg. We were wondering where the beard went. But you have to sort of manage your resources and your space.
Yeah,
so I have other collections that I'm hardcore into and stuff, but there are some things in Star Wars. I used to have some prototypes of different toys that they made. So these are the things that were in-house that the Kenner guys made, but that were not meant to be had by anyone. So I love the Power Droid, and I had a late-stage prototype of the Power Droid, pre-production figure of the Power Droid, with a little hand-cut sticker. It wasn't an actual, die-cut sticker on the face of it. It had a few other little detail differences in it. I love that thing.
And do you still have that?
I don't. That's something I sold. So I have a friend who's got an amazing Star Wars collection. And he lives, I'm in New York City, he lives in Queens, so not very far. So I decided I would sell a bunch of stuff that I really cared a lot about. I sold that. I sold these things called proof cards, which are those card backs. But they are the printer proofs, the things that you're not supposed to have. I had a bunch of those for Power Droid, a few other prototype pieces. I decided to sell it to my friend because A, I knew it was going into a great collection for someone who was going to care for it and really love it, and B, because it's only about 30 minutes away. I kind of consider it like the easternmost wing of the Brian Stillman collection. So it's kind of there. It's just you have to walk a really long hallway to get to it and ride a subway. But it's always going to be there. Like his kid is in my movie. We did some reenactments and we filmed his kid in it. So it was okay, and the money went to a good cause, more film stuff. So
as you mentioned, the film, if you guys out there, you want to actually go check it out, there's an Amazon link down below. If you're Amazon Prime, it's absolutely free, so go jump down there and check it out.
Yep. I know I will be once I'm off the cruise. I'll be checking it out for sure.
Yes, I myself have to absolutely check this out. I missed the showing of it, so now I gotta check it out.
Well, so we have the streaming version. If you are like crazy hardcore collector, our DVD version has 40 minutes of extras, things that I either couldn't find a way to sort of organically and elegantly put them in the film, but I was like, this is super cool, or things that kind of go deeper into the weeds, and it's just like, oh man, like I would want to know about this, but the sort of person who digs Star Wars toys but is not completely insane is not going to really care. And that's this balancing act you have to do as a sort of geek filmmaker. Like, you don't want to get too deep so that it becomes inaccessible to people, but you don't want to make it too surface level so that the people who really care about it are like, you didn't tell me anything. But I had a few things where I was like, this is like getting a little crazy. So we did those as extras. But on the other hand, if you stream it, you get it in glorious HD, which I think is pretty kind of cool. So, hey, whatever works.
Or just watch it twice.
Or just watch
extended footage.
If you watch it on Amazon Prime, watch it on endless loop, so I make more money. Apparently, they have algorithms that prevent that.
Who knows?
Damn it!
Damn you, technology.
So is there anything else you wanna share about Plastic Galaxies?
Yeah, maybe like a couple of highlight moments.
Yeah, I mean, so Plastic Galaxy, the coolest part for me was meeting all these people. There's a guy named Steve Sansweet. He has the Guinness World Records largest collection of Star Wars memorabilia in the world, and he runs a museum called Rancho Obi-Wan. And it's in Petaluma, California. It's this non-profit, and they do a lot of educational stuff, a lot of tours for kids and whatever. He used to be the fan relations guy for Lucasfilm, and he was kind of one of the earliest collectors. He was at press screenings for Star Wars and fell in love with this thing. So we got to visit his collection, and you walk into this, it's like a warehouse. It's an old chicken farm, basically, and the giant chicken coop that's like warehouse size, and you walk into it, and it's just like stuff arranged on shelves, everything you could dream of. So we went to that, and that was just amazing to see. My favorite thing, though, is if you watch my documentary, if you're a Star Wars fan, the coolest thing in the world is in a shot and you won't even know you watched it. And it's not one of the toys, it's not what the film is about. But there's a guy we interviewed named Gus Lopez, who's done a number of books about Star Wars. He's got the most incredible collection of not just toys and prototype toys, but also original Star Wars props. And he's sitting in his interview in front of a model of the Death Star. Well, that model of the Death Star is the model of the Death Star. When they point and say, that's no moon, that's a space station, that's sitting in his living room.
You could basically reenact that scene every single day, going to his living room.
All the trench run scenes in Star Wars were shot using these tiles, these panels that they built, a sort of flat surface to fly across, but they needed one spherical model. It's sitting there. So we go to Gus's house, and I know I'm there to do a job, to do these interviews, but it's just like, that's the Death Star, or that's every blaster from Star Wars, or those are Cantina masks, or oh, there's Tarkin's pants. He's got Tarkin's pants. So that was pretty amazing. So if you want stories from the history, I can give you those too, but for me, that was the coolest stuff.
So every once in a while, when you have somebody that has some level of fame or some, hardcore thing, you have those fanboy, fangirl moments. How hard did you have to resist, or did you fail in geeking out?
While making this movie?
Well, like, it was specifically with this location.
Oh,
this collection, yeah.
It was a constant state of geeking out. Like, yeah, I had a friend with me assisting me on the film, a guy named Carl Tate, who was a producer on the film with me, and he did all of our artwork and stuff or whatever. And he was on a bunch of the shoots with me, and he'd be like, "Yeah, Brian, we should probably set up the cameras now." And I'm just like, shut up, we gotta ask about this." He's like, "No," and he's into this stuff too, but he was like trying to keep it together. He's like, no, we gotta set up. I was like, "You're fired because you're restricting me from seeing more stuff." He's like, "No, time to calm you down, Brian.
We have work to do here."
Yeah,
I could actually imagine as a filmmaker with having the Death Star, like just wanting to do a bunch of camera moves around it, so it's like you can make your own like flying in scene.
It was amazing. The funny thing is, we show up. His house used to be a bed. This is nothing to do with Star Wars, but his house used to be a bed and breakfast. Like years and years and years ago, apparently. And he had not told his wife that we were showing up to do the shoot. And at the time, we were carrying all our gear around in suitcases because we had to travel. It was easier than using big Pelican cases and stuff like that. So my friend and I, Carl and I, show up each with a suitcase, and we ring the doorbell, and she opens the door. She's like, "Oh, I'm sorry," because apparently they'd still occasionally get phone calls for people looking to book this bed and breakfast because people had out-of-date information. She's like, "I'm sorry, we're not a hotel anymore." And we're like, "What?" We were completely confused. She was confused. Apparently Gus hadn't told her we were even doing the shoot. Yes, he wasn't home at that moment. We got there a little early.
You
we
can't
like,
set those
awkward.
things up. That's only...
Yeah, it was
Pretty priceless.
strange. But anyway, yeah, it was super fun. I mean, going through his collection. And then the toys, I mean, stuff that he's all these unproduced things. They were into these things called Star Tots, which were like the little Playmobil people, but as Star Wars figures. They never released those. They did a line of droids and Ewoks figures for the cartoons, Droids and Ewoks.
Right.
And they did a whole bunch, they're called UDEs, Unproduced Droids and Ewoks. That's what they're known as today. He has all of them. So they did a bunch of figures, but they were going to do more figures, but the line died. Rocket-firing Boba Fetts. The legendary rocket-firing Boba Fett.
Aren't there like 3 of them?
No, well, there are more. So this is an interesting
Okay.
story. So originally, you'd flip these cards over. You mentioned you had the cutout things to mail away for figures. The most famous one was Boba Fett. You mail away these figures, and you...
Boba Fett.
dies like a punk in the movies, but that figure was amazing. And it was originally advertised as having a rocket-firing mechanism. You hit a little button, a little missile fires. Well, they never released that. And if anyone claims that they got one as a kid, if any of you out there are claiming you have one as a kid, that is not true. Kenner's lawyers killed that thing because a kid choked on a little missile on a Battlestar Galactica toy. But a number of prototypes were made, and it got really far through the process to this stage called first shots, which were basically in-house production figures they'd make with short-run molds.
Right.
They were unpainted. They were often shot in different color plastics. They weren't quite ready to go out there, but it allowed them to sort of check out the figure, test it, make sure they liked it, try different paint schemes, whatever they had to do. So they released a number of them. was something called the L slot mechanism, where you push a little thing this way and it fired the missile. So it's shaped like an L. That they decided was a little too unsafe, too easy to fire it, so they made the J slot where you had to push it down and then it would go up and fire. But the little hook part would break and it was still too unsafe, so they finally killed it completely. Well, Guss has one of each. So I got to see rocket firing Boba Fett's. I've seen 7 of them over the course of this film, and I fired one of them, which is awesome. Childhood dream.
That's actually really cool because, as I said, back in the day, I actually did research on these toys. Boba Fett, like so many other Star Wars nerds out there, he's one of my favorite characters, and I had heard that there were only 3 that were ever out there, so that's actually
there
cool.
are a lot. So here's the irony. It is probably the most expensive prototype out there because it's the one that everybody was supposed to get but didn't, and it's legendary, and
it's the one that got
away. Because everybody hears about it.
Right. Well, they actually published the cards that said rocket firing. Then they re-released the cards. Like they immediately put over the new figures that came out after. They're like, well, we're not doing this. They put a sticker over that. So some of the card backs you can buy have a sticker over it that are just like, with Boba Fett, doesn't do anything, and then after that they reprinted the cards with the new information on the back. But that's the one everyone knew. Ironically, as prototypes go, these incredibly rare things go, there are a lot of them, like 15, 18, 20, whatever, because they made a lot of these first shots, however many are out there. Some of them are painted, some of them are unpainted, some of them are weird colors, some of them aren't, all different things.
Yeah. But among people who would want them, 18 to 20 is like a drop in the bucket.
I mean, they are, the price of those, I don't like to talk about price too much, but the price of those is disproportionate to the number of those that are out there because the demand for those is so ridiculously high. Whereas I know people who have things where there's like one known, one prototype survived. But that's not the thing that people are demanding. So
the fandom
weird
for it is a high.
Well,
it's not like it's a pork.
And it's because it's Boba Fett where he has this popular character. So
I've seen. I mean, as cool as that was, I saw the sculpt for Darth Vader's action figure, the wax sculpt that literally starts the whole thing in the process of making this. So you see stuff like that. That is amazing that it survived. Yeah. It also survives because of these collectors who tracked down the old Kenner employees and said, what do you have in your attics? What do you have in your basements? Back then, these guys just took stuff home. It didn't matter.
Made a point to preserve this stuff for posterity.
And learn about it. And they wrote about the history of it. So we know so much about these toy lines now because all this stuff's been collected and saved by these sort of Indiana Jones of the toy world guys doing this back in the late 90s and early 2000s. It was amazing.
So, what do you guys out there think? Are you a big Star Wars nerd like us and still have some of your cool stuff?
Yeah, tell us about your collections, your favorite action figures from the original Kenner line. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe.
You can hang out with us over on Facebook.
So until next time, stay nerdy.